Pulse is a first-person adventure game created by Pixel Pie Games, a team based in Canada. A Kickstarter baby, Pulse was funded back in April 2013 and released on October 20th, 2015. After those years in development, how has Pulse turned out? Well, let's take a look. Before we go any further though, I need to note that these are really just my initial impressions and that this isn't a full review. I haven't yet completed Pulse, but I feel like there are points I need to make about the game, so here we go! In Pulse, you play as a blind girl named Eva that's basically Daredevil. She sees the world through the sounds it makes, kind of like Echolocation. I think the only difference is that she's not really using her own sounds, but I digress. Eva is on a journey through some mystical magical land. I think she's there on a pilgrimage or something. The reasons why you're there are kind of unclear so far. All that's really known is that you're in this magical place and there are earthquakes and some weird cycloptic bird demon thing. Oh, and there's these cute little guys. Since you can only see when sound is made, you're able to chuck these fluff balls around to reveal the world. Some of them are making different facial expressions. This one's super creepy. They're satisfying to toss around, and any that you're not holding will follow you around, but you need to be really careful with them. I found that pretty often they'd get stuck somewhere and be unable to follow you. At a later part in the game, this happened and I couldn't get them out. You'd think that reloading the game or dying and respawning would get them unstuck, but due to how the game handles death and saves, I guess, they're just staying stuck, and I've only got one I can use, which is making this part of the game much harder than it already is. You'll be exploring the small sections of map you'll find yourself in as you try to figure out how to progress. It's a lot of small puzzles that are mostly about making the furballs run in hamster balls to open doors, or finding a platforming section and figuring out how to beat it in order to make progress. The part I was stuck at for a while in Pulse had me trying to sneak past these black and red dogs. When I first got there, I was pretty pleased because it's a change of pace and it finally adds some danger to the game. But as I failed this section over and over again, I began to notice some things. First off, the dogs simply stop moving and turn towards you when they notice you, forcing you to back off. They won't actively hunt you down, and you can't distract them by throwing the little fuzzy things. It's also not obvious what exactly makes them notice you. I think it's sound, since they'll stare at you through rocks and trees, but it's not clear how much noise causes them to turn around and growl at you. You don't have the ability to crouch or walk slower either, so you're always making the same amount of noise except when you sprint. I think that's a little bit louder. The wolves also tend to get stuck, similar to how the fuzzballs do, right down to not getting unstuck. There was one time I was playing when one of them got stuck right in a spot that I think I needed to go by in order to progress, and because of their range, anytime I would try to go by, I'd die. Because of this, I had to play all the way back up to this part, which is what kept me here for a while. Honestly, a few small changes and some polish could fix most of the problems in this section, and they'd carry over to other parts of the game. I think the most important thing would be to not let the fuzzballs or the wolves get stuck. Giving them some kind of wall that they can't pass when it comes to the environment, or making it so that they can walk through the objects that they're getting stuck behind and just in order to get back to their paths would fix it. Barring that, allowing a reload of the level to actually get them unstuck would be fantastic. The wolves should feel more dynamic too. Right now they're just cranky obstacles, but if they stalked the player based on the player's noise, or if you could distract them with the fuzzballs, that'd add a great deal to this section. With that change, you'd need to make it so that the player doesn't die until the wolves are right up on them, as opposed to the few feet that it takes now, but I feel like it would go a long way. The visuals can get very, if you'll pardon the pun, noisy. There's a variable level of transparency to everything in the environment, and how opaque a thing is depends on the noises bouncing off of it. Because of this, there's a lot of visual noise that makes things confusing and at times hard to look at. That's a shame because the colors actually in use in Pulse are pretty solid and creative. The visuals are more of a difficult issue to fix in the gameplay because of how deeply they're tied into the overall feel of Pulse. The biggest problem they have is how cluttered and unclear everything can be, and honestly, I'm not sure what I'd do to fix that. Having less transparency in general in objects in the environment would go a huge way towards fixing it, but it's hard to tell without really trying it. Lastly, I think I'm actually at the end of the game right now, but it seems to be bugged out or I'm just missing something. You go through this door that closes behind you, and there's this big glowing mess of blackness. You can't interact with it, and the only things in the room are a bunch of fuzzballs. Throwing them does nothing, I can't find anything to interact with, and you can't even just walk directly really into this stuff, though you can stand on it. Either I'm missing something incredibly obvious, or there's a really obtuse puzzle going on here that should be smoothed out. Overall, Pulse feels like a labor of love that came out of the oven a bit too soon. It has some good ideas, but because of bugs and cluttered visuals, it gets held back pretty heavily. With some time and changes, I feel like Pulse could be a very fantastic game. You can get Pulse for about 15 bucks on Steam. From what I've heard, it's supposed to be fairly short as well, no more than an hour tops. That, combined with the design issues and bugginess I've seen, makes this not quite worth the price. I truly do hope that the developers are able to work on it further because, like I said, it has so much potential if not for the problems. Thanks for joining me for my first impressions of Pulse. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more. If you know of any games I should check out, please drop me a line. You can leave a comment down below or shoot me a message on Twitter. My handle's @forkh. You can also drop me an email at fork4h@gmail.com. That's it. I'll see you next time. Bye!